Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. We will kick off. We'll kick off now because I know we have a packed agenda for today and a very exciting webinar for you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Nina Rasaka. I'm coordinator of the UNEP-convened World Water Quality Alliance. I'd like to welcome everyone participating across time zones. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to those who may be joining very late in the day. Thank you so much for participating in this launch of policy brief on citizen science for water quality monitoring. On behalf of the World Water Quality Alliance coordination team, we'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar. We'll delve deeper into some of the great work that's been undertaken on citizen science. This kicked off with a very small seed funding grant in 2021, and we've come very far to date. So we're really excited to introduce this work that's taking place in several countries on the African continent, and how this is contributing to the broader global SDG indicator monitoring. The Alliance, as per its vision, is a multidisciplinary platform of stakeholders striving for a world in which ambient water quality is improved by moving from data to demonstrable effects and action at local, national, and global scale. And citizen science is a great example of one of the work streams that we have, one of the many work streams we have that cuts across social engagement, kind of technical water quality monitoring and data, and through to the involvement of local communities on the ground. You'll hear from some of my colleagues, specifically Stuart, who will speak more about the incredible data gap that we have where water quality and reporting on the SDG indicator 6.3.2, which is proportion of bodies with good ambient water quality, is concerned. And again, this is something that we all depend on good water quality. So it's imperative that we start from monitoring it and having structures in place to monitor it and to complement in situ monitoring of water quality. So again, today we'll be hearing from our colleagues, kicking off with Stephen Loisel from Earthwatch Europe, and Stuart Warner from UNEP's SDG 6.3.2 specialist from GEMS Water on the Alliance workstream for citizen science on 632 and the activities that have taken place. Then we'll be hearing from Izzy Bishop from the University College London for an overview on the technical and policy briefs that we're very proud and excited to launch today. And finally, we'll conclude with two case studies from Tanzania and Sierra Leone. So hearing from our colleagues Abubakar Kamara from the National Water Resources Agency of Sierra Leone and Rochi Mkole from the Tanzanian Ministry of Water. So just we'll kick that off. Just before kicking that off, just very briefly, some housekeeping points. Please, everyone, do keep yourself on mute so that we can clearly hear the presentations. You may want to keep your cameras off as well, just for bandwidth reasons. And we'll take a group picture at some point where we will ask everyone to turn on their camera, so stay tuned for that. That'll be towards the end. Please ask any questions directly in the question and answer box. So there's a small box on the bottom of the screen which says Q&A. Please type in your questions there and we'll kind of go to those directly. There is a chat also, and we would encourage you to use it if you'd like to introduce yourself, where you're from, how you're involved in citizen science. Please use that, and we'd love to hear also where everyone is connecting from, what part of the world you're in. And again, this webinar will be recorded. It'll be made available online, and we'll be sharing the link with you. So don't worry if you missed something. With that, thank you very much. And I will hand over to Stephen and Stuart. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nina. Thanks for the introduction. So my name's Stuart Warner. I work for UNEP's GEMS Water programme, and I'll kick off this section, then hand over to Stephen in a couple of minutes. And what I want to talk about is how we kind of got to where we are with these policy and technical briefs, and provide a little bit of context on where the idea came from and where we got to. So a kind of a quick history lesson in the GEMS Water, or UNEP's GEMS Water programme, is one of UNEP's oldest programmes. It's been around for nearly 50 years. And the original mandate for GEMS Water came out of a recognition that we needed to better understand how our fresh waters are changing over time, and a need to create data, and solid and robust data that can feed into global assessments. That work was ongoing for many years, and then more recently there was a UNEA resolution, the United Nations Environment Assembly resolution, that asked UNEP to create a world water quality assessment. That wasn't possible just on UNEP on its own, so from that came the World Water Quality Alliance, and that was conceived a few years ago. And the World Water Quality Alliance works through a number of different work streams, and they focus on different thematic areas, including biodiversity, groundwater, plastics, lots of different ones. One particular one is the Citizen Science for SDG Indicator 632. So this is a work stream under the World Water Quality Alliance, and there are several different projects that we're involved with, including a very broad working group of experts and practitioners in the world of citizen science. And this came from this idea that, you know, there are huge data gaps in situ monitoring. So, because GEMS Water, as part of its mandate, delivers on capacity development. It hosts the GEMS Water Data Center in the Federal Institute of Hydrology in Germany, in Koblenz. And also within UNEP, GEMS Water is the implementing program for SDG Indicator 632. And it was through this implementation that we realized what a huge, big data gap there is in situ data. And citizen science serves as an opportunity to help fill that data gap, amongst lots of other benefits as well. So this policy brief that being launched today is one of several projects that came out of this working group. So just for those of you who are unaware about the indicator, it's one of two indicators under SDG target 6.3, and the part of this target, which I won't read out, which is on the screen, is about improving water quality by 2030. So the other indicator is the proportion of wastewater that's safely treated, but what we're looking at here is the proportion of bodies of water with good ambient water quality. So we in UNEP, we go out to all of the UN member states on a 3-year cycle, and we ask them to report on their water quality based on a standard methodology. And in addition to the actual indicator score, we ask them for additional pieces of information, such as how many monitoring values they're using, how many monitoring stations, the water body types, and also the target threshold values that they're using in their assessment. And this additional information is really useful and gives us great insight into how countries are monitoring and assessing their fresh waters. So this figure here shows you, and this is one of the kind of key messages that came out of the latest progress report, which was just launched a few weeks ago at Stockholm World Water Week. And it just summarizes and makes clear what we all know already, but it's always good to see it supported by the data. Each of the columns represents the number of monitoring values that different countries use, and these countries have been grouped into quartile bins. So the column on the farthest right is the highest income country, and the column on the left, the very small column, is the lowest income countries. And this is the sum total of the number of phosphorus and nitrogen and pH measurements that countries used to report on the indicator in 2023. So there was over 2 million measurements used in total, but only 60,000 came from the lowest income half of the world. So this is the stark data gap. And when you look into the water body types as well that are being used, it's obviously rivers make up the vast majority, and groundwaters and lakes are very low down in the number of measurements that are being used. So there's this huge capacity gap in being able to monitor fresh waters. So what this means is that realistically, Because of this lack of monitoring, we estimate that by 2030, there'll be 4.8 billion people could be at risk in terms of their lives and their livelihoods because they're relying on these essentially unmonitored water bodies. But in those regions where we do have good data, where a lot of assessment is going on, it does appear that water quality is degrading. Despite all of these data, water quality still seems to be degrading. So what are we doing about it? We're active in a number of different areas, and this one's particularly on citizen science is an important one. And for the last few years, we've been really pushing the use of citizen science, not just for data collection, but also to create that pathway between the ministries who are involved in reporting for the indicator and who are responsible for their water resource management, and linking them to the communities who are most impacted by poor water quality, but also they're the ones who are best placed to improve water quality at the local level. And through this work, both Sierra Leone and Zambia actually incorporated citizen science data as part of their 2023 632 submission. And this is one of our key messages along the bottom, is we cannot monitor our way out of the water quality crisis, but it is an essential prerequisite to management. So just going back a little bit to this, the World Water Quality Alliance workstream and the working group that we have there, our objective is to normalise the use of citizen-generated data for SDG 6 reporting, and through this to bring about positive environmental and social change. And the rationale is, citizen science can produce in situ data, but as I said, it provides this pathway for community level engagement. But as we've realised, and many others have as well, there are many barriers that need to be overcome. Over awareness of the potential, over the acceptance of the data, technical issues need to be sorted out, and there are policy issues as well that need to be addressed. And this is one of the direct reasons why we took on this work. So this is where the work is. And at this point, I'll hand over to Stephen Ozell of Earthwatch, the Freshwater Watch program, and he can go into more detail on what we're doing on that. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and welcome everyone. It's nice to see some familiar names, so kind of with old friends here. So there's been a series of projects that began several years ago and that have, as Stuart just mentioned, have in some cases had brilliant success because the citizen science data is being used for SDG 632 reporting, and other ones are working towards that goal. So as you can see, these projects are going on in several places in Africa. We're starting up in Ethiopia in the Lake Hawassa Basin. Kenya has a number of projects, both linking to the RUA, Water Resource User Association monitoring, as well as projects in the transnational Mara River, which together with Tanzania are looking at essentially all the sub-basins of the Mara. There's also an important project with communities along the Nairobi River, in and around Nairobi. Malawi, there's several projects, one completed along the Longway, one due to start on the Upper Shire, and Mulanje and Mzimba are also projects that are ongoing in the more rural areas of Malawi. Sierra Leone, one of the stars, we have Abubakar, who will be describing a little bit of the project later, is active in the Rocco River, and we're beginning a new project in Taia Pampana. So in South Africa, there are a number of rivers where citizen science has been going on for years, and those are expanding as we speak, especially over the last 6 months or so. And we also, in Tanzania, have a brilliant project on the lower part of the Mara that our colleague Rochi Akole will describe shortly. And in Zambia, very good projects in the Upper Kafue, which has been going on for more than 4 years, Lower Kafue, I'm sorry, and now expanding into the Upper Kafue, Upper Zambezi, areas where citizen scientists are being trained in the recent past and in the very near future. So all these projects, next please, Stuart. All these projects are different from the point of view of the participants, how they're recruited, but they're very similar from the idea of we're trying to fill in knowledge gaps, fill in areas that don't have enough information to be able to integrate data into a river basin management program. The training is the same throughout all the projects, and all this is done, of course, by an incredibly great group of colleagues across all the agencies, across the nonprofits, across the charities, across the ministries that are supporting all this work in all these countries. There was a really good meeting in Nairobi last year where we had a knowledge exchange comparing experiences and challenges and opportunities through all these projects. So there's actually a good moving forward as a network, understanding where we need to push to meet those, to overcome those barriers that Stuart just mentioned a little earlier. And over the last 6 months has been expansion in all these projects into new basins, into further up areas in individual basins that don't have good coverage from either ministry or agency monitoring or citizen science, as well as a series of feedback exercises. Citizen scientists are energized and engaged, and they want to be part of the solution, but they also need to understand. The information needs to get back to them in a understandable and usable manner, and they need to be empowered to be participating in these river basin management programs. There's an ongoing development of the data to be integrated from different sources so that these data can be used in a more holistic and river basin type way. And of course, the main objective, the key objective, is to support improved water monitoring, improved river management or lake management in some cases, to allow for reporting in SDG 632. So next, please, Stuart. As I mentioned, we're expanding. There's new projects starting, and the idea is that citizen science becomes a perfectly acceptable and usable approach to generate data to help governments, agencies, communities, and local people understand their river quality and water quality and improve the conditions. There's all kinds of barriers, but working together with this really great group of people across Africa, across the world, we're working to find the solutions to embed these activities in policy and to make it very much an acceptable part of monitoring and managing. Over to Izzy, and thank you very much. And if you want to see the great report that GEMS has produced, there's the link. And if you want to also join the work stream, you're always welcome. So over to Izzy.
Thank you, Stephen, and hi everyone. My name's Izzy Bishop. I am a freshwater ecologist and a lecturer at University College London. And today is really, really exciting because it marks the launch of 2 documents that a huge team of people from across the world and I have been working on for the last couple of years, far longer than we should have done, to be honest, but we've got there. And they are a policy brief and an accompanying technical brief, which call for international policymakers and local communities to start working together to monitor and also to improve water quality using citizen science. So crucially, they outline a clear plan of action that we believe all countries should adopt as soon as possible if we want to meet global targets for ambient water quality. Stuart, if you just go back a slide, the QR codes to access the documents are there. I think Claire is also posting links in the chat, and I will share the QR codes again later too. But for now, what I'm going to do is talk you through some of the important messages and also a little bit of behind the scenes information about the process of writing it. So Stuart, forward a slide, please. Thank you. The headline message, really, and one thing that we really, really want people to hear today is that citizen scientists across the world possess a huge amount of data, but also local knowledge about the state of the world's water, and also potential ways to improve it, which they are invested in. If we can get water resource management authorities to work with these people who care for their water bodies, we can massively accelerate progress towards SDG 6. Or, to put it another way, there's this quote from the policy brief. Citizen science has the potential to revolutionise the way we manage water resources, to improve water quality by making information readily available to those who need it most. So next slide, please. The policy brief stresses that this is not just going to happen, it needs deliberate action. And it specifically asks national authorities to work with citizen science project coordinators to do three things. Firstly, to nominate a focal point within the national authority to explore the potential of citizen science. Secondly, to task that person with three specific jobs. Firstly, identifying some priorities based on the guidance in the technical brief, which I will talk about later. Secondly, appraise the existing national monitoring capacity, which can be accessed via the online SDG Water Quality Hub. And thirdly, exploring citizen science projects that exist in your country that have the most potential for your national context. And then the final thing is to think about the resources that are needed to implement that plan, which again, there's guidance about in the technical brief. So that's the headline messages. I now want to go on and highlight some of the details of the guidance given in the technical brief and tell a little bit about how we arrived at it. So next slide, please. So when the WWQA working group was established 4 or so years ago, it was probably the first time that people from across the world who were using citizen science to monitor water quality in some way or another had come together to talk about their work. And the group includes academics, citizen science project coordinators, and also water resource authority representatives from across the world, not just Africa. So we all have quite different perspectives. And it became clear really quickly that there's a huge amount of citizen science activity happening globally, but the information collected by these volunteers who are spending a huge amount of time and energy gathering data isn't always reaching local or national agencies overseeing the management of the water bodies. And because it wasn't reaching these people, it wasn't being used to track progress towards global targets, and that was restricting the resources available for their findings to be acted on at a local level to improve water quality. And at the same time, water resource authorities, as we've already heard from Stuart, are facing this huge data gap. And what this means is that people who care about their water potentially don't have safe water for domestic, agricultural, or recreational activities, and we just don't know. So what we did was we started brainstorming about all the things that need to be in place for citizen scientists to be able to communicate and contribute the valuable information that they have where they are already working. We had a really long list. So next slide, please, Stuart. We had a long list, but we were able to reduce it down to 3 broad categories. Sorry, I've missed that. So that's just a photo of some of the citizen science activity that's already happening, showing some contrasting examples from South Africa and the UK. So if we could go to the next slide. So we had this really long list, and we were able to cut it down into 3 broad categories. So these are things that we think need to be in place for citizen scientists to be able to contribute to SDG 6 and other water quality goals. Firstly, they need to be producing data that's fit for the purpose. So they need to be measuring the right things, using the right protocols in a scientifically robust way, and they need the support to do that. Secondly, they need to be appropriately supported and valued, because these people have huge contributions to make, and their knowledge needs to be recognised. And then thirdly, there needs to be some kind of framework in place that facilitates the communication between the citizen scientists and the water resource authorities. So in the technical brief, we give a checklist of all the different things that need to be considered in each of these categories. But as we did this, we also realized there's not really this kind of one size fits all approach that we were, I think, initially aiming for. So although we've got this checklist, how do we know what to prioritize in any given situation? So next slide, please, Stuart. We realized that some of us were working in contexts where national authorities already have a huge, well-established monitoring network, but aren't necessarily making effective use of the local knowledge, but also the kind of social well-being opportunities that citizen science could provide. So that's places like the UK. Whereas others, and what we've heard about a lot today, are working in contexts where national authorities have very limited resources. And in some cases, the only information available is coming from citizen science, or there's no information available at all. And the priorities for where you should focus your attention seem to be different in all of these cases. So we brought these experiences together and discussed what had been effective and what hadn't, and came up with these 4 different action pathways based on the current availability of national authority and citizen science data in whatever context you sit in. So broadly speaking, the goal for all of these pathways is to eventually dovetail the design of citizen science and national authority monitoring programs. But the way that you get there and which priorities you address in which order is different in each case. So we give lots of examples of this in the technical brief. And we hope that's going to help people to prioritize from the checklist that we mentioned, which actions to take, and whether they should be focusing on, for example, the quality of the data, the support for the volunteers, or this enabling framework. And we're going to hear examples later from 2 of those case studies. So next slide. So that was a very, very quick rundown. There's a huge amount more information in there. We hope that if you look at these documents, they give you actually helpful and meaningful advice about how to adopt citizen science for water quality monitoring in your specific context, whether you are a National Water Resource Authority staff member or a project coordinator or a citizen scientist. We'd really, really love it if you could share these documents widely. There's the QR codes again and the links, which are also in the chat. I've also put my email address, and I'm very, very happy to answer any questions there or in the chat. I will be attending COP16 next month, and I'd love to discuss with anyone who's going to be there how these lessons can be applied within the SDG framework, but also beyond. So with that, I'd like to thank the authors and all of the citizen scientists who are collecting data all over the world. And if Stuart moves to the next slide, I think there's a really nice quote from the policy brief, which is, without immediate adoption of citizen science, the authors believe that Sustainable Development Target 6.3, which is that target about water quality, will not be met. So thank you, everyone. And I'll pass over to whoever I'm passing over to.
That'll be me for just 1 second. So on to the case studies. So the first case study will be presented by Rochi Macaulay from the Ministry of Water, and the second by Abu Bakar. So over to you, Rochi.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. I think everybody hearing me. My name is Mr. Rochi Macaulay from Tanzania. I'm a project of citizen science supervisor, specifically at the downstream of the Mara River Basin. So the project have 2 sites. The first one is upper site, which is Kenya, and the lower site, which is Tanzania. So in this project we have the main objective and the objective of this project. Mainly objective of this project is to improve Mara River management and the monitorings, and allow the ministry to support the sustainable development goals number 6 indicator using citizen science generated data. supporting local community, and Water Resource Management Act to improve river basin management. Identify pollution, which is nutrient and sediment, hotspot, and supporting Lake Victoria Basin water bodies in mitigation actions. Another slide. So in Tanzania sides, obviously we have almost about several monitoring stations. So we have a water use association point. Almost we have 10 water use association with a total of 29 monitoring stations for the frequency monitoring, which the project have been started from February 2022 up to February 2023, up to current 2024 August. So the scope of the project is covering, for the Tanzania side, we have 10 water use association point with the monitoring stations, as what it has been indicated in this map. Show that this is a Lake Victoria side part, and this is the area where there are some activities or the project have been conducted. And this upper side, there is a Kenya. So the scope of the project have been started from February 2023, and then the GEM expansion, the project in August 24. So generally, we have 29 monitoring stations with a 10 water user association. Yes. 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 The characteristics and the perception of citizen science participant questionnaire. So we have a received river water quality by participant, and we have local community used by the river. So we have the Water User Association of Somoche, Tigite, it means the Tigite, UO Upper, Mara North, and the Tobora. So definitely the status up to date is shows like these ones. So in a river perception, water qualities, we have the very clean, we have worthy but still good, poor but not impacted to communities, poor and impacting the community. As it is the data is show that is. There are some points of Somoche, there is all points have been indicated by the different numbers. Very clean is appear that for Somoches, there are some larger impact in this area. For Tigiti also, there are some worse, but still usings. Some larger number is appear in poor and impact to communities, because this area is there is agricultural activities and mining activities. In Malakusin also there are some a little bit of worth, but still goods. It show like this one, and larger numbers appears in poor and impact community. Likewise to Tobora. So other is as local community with impact on water quality identified by tribe practices and the catchment activities. The major is the smallholder agriculture activities, which show the large number in these areas. There are a lot of agricultural activities and the plastic disposal. This is shows by the data. Data shows that there is a higher plastic disposal. For the catchment activities, it's likely quite the same. Smallholder agriculture with the small farms. Most of the areas, this area of 29 monitoring station is affected by the small agricultural activities. Another slide. So the local activities, another slide. Yes, this is water quality results, origin slight seasonal variation. There is a nutrient, which is the phosphate, and the seasonal changes, and the nitrate season changes. As is shown in Maracucines, specifically in rainy seasons, show that there is a higher nutrient concentration, specifically is the phosphate level. It shows that this is mainly is the international standard as per sustainable development goals is 0.1, but most of the point is cutting across the rainy season, the phosphate is increasing comparing to the dry seasons. But for the nitrate in seasonal variations, is looked as inversely proportionality. For example, in Tigite, in dry seasons, there is higher nitrate concentration in comparing to rainy seasons. So likewise, when you see also in Somoche, which is appear also in Tobora, and likewise in Marakusini, the same for rainy season and the dry season. It means that in this area, there is higher agricultural activities which mainly influences the increasing addition of nutrient concentration, specifically its nitrate level in Lake Victoria Basin. Yes. 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 So in transitional monitorings, so we can see now the comparisons between the upper side and the lower side of the Lake Victoria, upside and the downside of the Mara River Basin in comparison. When you see there is a phosphate seasoning and the basin dynamics. For example, in Kenya side and in Mara size, in rainy season and in dry seasons. It shows that for Kenya, show that this is upside, this is upstream of the Mara River. Show there is a higher concentration of phosphate. This is due to the rainy seasons, all of the materials of wasting from animals, those dispersed. Then they are moving toward to the downstream of the Mara River basins. Also, the Tanzania side, when you compare the Tanzania side and the Kenyan side, it means that the upper side, there is a lot of phosphate contamination in Mara River Basin. And Tanzania also showed that in the dry season and the rainy season, show that in rainy season, then a higher concentration of phosphate comparing to dry season. Likewise to Kenya, which is the upper side, there is a higher concentration of phosphate compared to dry season. So this is a map which shows that there are some points for upside, which is the monthly monitorings, and there is a point also for the down upside, which I have mentioned there. There is Somoche, Tigite, Tobora, Mara North, Mara South, Manchila, Mori, and others. The next slide. So in comparison of Mara and Kenya for the issue of turbidity level. So it showed that in Kenya, Mara River and the Tanzania Mara River, the status showed that for the data which have been collected from February 2023 to currently August, show that in Kenya, in rainy season, there is higher turbidity. It's likewise in Tanzania also. During the rainy season, there is higher turbidity comparing with dry season. It means that the rainy season, there is higher turbidity due to some reaching activities which make the Mara River to receive some muds, and due to livestock keepings, soil erosions, which may influencing high increasing of turbidity in Mara River Basin as per current status. Site with plastic pollution is shown both in Tanzania side and the Kenyan side. There is a higher pollution of plastic pollutions, as we show that in community perception. In a community perception, which the data have been located by the citizen scientists, show that within the point which the monthly recording, there is a lot of plastic material which mainly deposited at Mara River Basin. So it means that this is a bad indicator. Maybe for 10 or 20 years, the Mara River Basin will totally be affected in both sides, upper side and the down side of the river. So show that the trend of the plastic, it means that increasing. So it is increasing plastic pollutions. There are a lot of plastic information increasing. So general conclusion, and the next steps, there are the spatial temporal gaps in water quality monitorings, were filled by trained citizen scientists in 10 UNEA with Tanzania and the 6 Kenya UNEAs. Monitoring show higher nutrient load to Lake Victoria, in particular phosphate. This nutrient load increase in the rainy seasons. So, you know, the Mara River Basin is discharge its water to the Lake Victoria Basin. So monitoring showed that the higher sediment load due to the increase of turbidity to the Lake Victoria, in particular in the rainy season. Site with higher phosphate concentration, which is greater than 1, a phosphate in Tanzania is Tigite, Lechawi, Matongo, Somoche, Niboko, Nyarusondobiro, Nyaruherere, Musati, in Kenya is Lower Mara. So the next step, we have a short-term action and a long-term action media. The first motivation, motivate citizen scientists to continue monitoring, light summary report, and a priority action. The media team is meeting with all citizen scientists to discuss the results. We must have to meet with the citizen scientists so that to discuss the results. What are the findings? And a 5 years continuation with citizen scientists and the Water User Association. But the long-term increase coverage to all Lake Victoria Basin users. This is supporting by March and the Water Resource Association, Water Resource Act, Sustainable Development 6 reporting 2025 cycle. So we know now we cover the part of the Mara River all, but remain the Lake Victoria Basin. The Lake Victoria Basin, we have the Simiyu region, we have the Kagera, and then we have the Mwanza itself. So the only component of Mwanza is completed. So thank you for the listenings. So welcome in Tanzania, in Mara River Basin, to enjoy the western and the eastern corridor of these animals in Serengeti National Park. So thank you for the listenings. Yes.
Over to you, Abu.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Welcome, everyone. I am Engineer Abubakar Kamara. I work with the National Water Resources Management Agency. I'll be presenting on citizen science monitoring in the Roque River Basin, Sierra Leone. Next slide, please. So in 2017, the National Water Resources Management Agency was established, and it was established to sustainably use and manage the country's water resources in an equitable, beneficial, and efficient manner. Alongside this, the agency is also promoting the coordinated management of economic development, social welfare, and environmental sustainability. It also manages land and water resources. The agency also manages the river basin and its adjacent marine and coastal environments, while at the same time managing upstream and downstream interests. So the agency has established a legal department which levied fines for pollutions or actions that influence the obstruction of water resources. It has developed 4 areas of regulations, which include groundwater development, water pollution and control, water catchment and control, as well as dam safety regulations. In its activity, the agency is as well developing monitoring locations within strategic river basins in Sierra Leone. So as a challenge with limited coverage as well as poor road network, it has collaborated with Freshwater Watch as well as James Water to work on something on citizen science monitoring program. So this program was done in order to report on SDG as well as river basin management plan. So in 2021, the agency selected few sites, 24 sites along subcatchments within the Roque River Basin. In the same 2021, we trained and established 24 locations that has 48 citizen scientists. So in 2023, we expanded the citizen science location from 24 to 29, 5 were added. And for the first time in 2023, the agency used citizen science data for SDG 6.3.2 reporting. So in 2024, we as well tried to expand to other river basins like the Taya, Pampana River basins, which is as well in the south. Next slide, please. In the recruitment and training, the agency conducted stakeholder engagements and recruited 2 citizen scientists from each community. As well, during the training, we try to do it in a centralized location. For example, the first 24 volunteers were trained in McKinney City. Again, an additional 5 were trained in their respective locations. Next slide, please. When the citizen scientists were asked on what motivated them to join the program, most join the program because they believe the community is influenced by the quality of their river. While some are curious to know more about their river, Few join the program because they want to know the environment as well as they want to prevent their village from danger. Next slide, please. So the first time we tried to utilize data from the citizen science monitoring, we developed land use from the phosphate, nitrate, and turbidity. As you can see, agricultural land use, rural residential, and forest, we are used to analyze the phosphate, nitrate, and turbidity. Agricultural land use has the greatest phosphate, nitrate, and turbidity. This is followed by forest, then the rural residential. Next slide, please. Again, a comparison was done from September 2021 to August 2023. So we realized the nitrate, phosphate, and turbidity as well, there is a change. Like from 2021 to 2022, when compared to 2023, the 2022 is a bit lower than the 2023. The same thing for phosphate. Unlike turbidity, the turbidity reduces from 2021 to 2023. Next slide, please. When we as well compared the agency's monitoring as well as the citizen science monitoring, the agency has limited coverage. That is, we have 18 water bodies that we are assessed along the Rokel River Basin. In that respect, we have about 354 water quality measurements per year. When this was integrated with citizen science monitoring, we have 34 water bodies assessed, as well as 694 water quality measurements per year. So the graph on the left, or the map on the left, is showing only the agency's data, while the map on the right shows the integration of citizen science data into the agency's data. Next slide, please. This is key when we try to integrate the agency's data with the citizen science. As a result, this is one of the challenges the citizen science has already resolved on us. Like, for example, if we use the agency to do 39 sites, this is what the expenses will be. We will spend more money on the site visits per month than we have in cost as well as the quality check. So if we compare the citizen science as well as the agency, the citizen science is less when we try to monitor 39 sites when compared to the agency. So about 37,200 will be spent per year using the agency, while only $3,100 will be spent per year. And this will only be on the kids' annual meetings per month. Next slide, please. Again, the success that has been achieved so far is when we try to integrate citizen science, it will help us to develop the Rokel River Basin Management Plan. And as you saw in the previous slide, the data was used to do, for the first time in 2023, SDG reporting. So this will be carrying over and over again. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Have I blocked on the way? All right, great. So the next step here is we're going to expand additional river basins for them to as well have citizen science monitoring program. Back slide. Yeah, thank you. So again, we will be as well getting feedback from citizen scientists. Then we will integrate data from multiple sources while continue to report on SDG 6.3.2. Herein, we will as well be developing river basin management plan and as well widen stakeholder participation in citizen science. Next slide, please. It slows, right? Next slide, please. Internet.
Sorry, UBK. Yeah, it's just slow. The transition.
Hello, can you hear me?
Slow. Yeah. Can you hear me? It's just the transition slow on the slides, ABK, but it's showing the thank you for your attention slide now.
I think his internet just went out. So, oh.
Okay, I think we've lost ABK, unfortunately. Okay, I hand over back to, is it Claire who's looking after the Q&A session?
Thank you very much. Yes, we've had some really great questions in the Q&A. I think Izzy's going through and trying to answer a few as they have come up. But I think maybe we'll kick off with one of the first questions that was asked was, how can citizen science data be integrated into existing frameworks? So I wonder if maybe ABK has answered some of that and how it was done in Sierra Leone. Stuart, do you want to get back at that one?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it's basically, I think it's kind of not easy. Is the bottom line. I think in each of those projects that that Stephen showed on the map, each model for those projects is slightly different. So I don't think there's one kind of direct, one kind of clear pathway. And as Izzy was saying in the policy brief, we kind of tried to address that by offering these different like entry points based on the national situation. So there is no one size fits all approach, but what I do think is key is making sure that from very early on that the national ministry or agency, whoever's responsible for the national management of water resources, is involved in that process. I hope that's answered the question. Thanks.
Yeah, and there was a follow-up question about consolidating data and providing it to decision makers, and whether that was happening at any of the projects that were mentioned or any other ideas. I wondered if you wanted to mention about the data integration project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's one of the kind of key barriers that we identified. There's so much fantastic work going on, but often the approaches used can be a little bit different. So there's kind of key components that need to be considered when bringing these data together. So the idea being to integrate all these fantastic different citizen science data streams into an SDG ready format that can be used then by the national agency. And one kind of key consideration is there then, so might be macroinvertebrate methods or observational methods of lake color, whatever, or as we focused on here, the kind of the phosphates and the turbidity and the nitrates. As long as the data can be used to classify or can be compared against a standard, some threshold target value of good versus not good, then there are ways to bring those data together. So it's not the actual data that's brought together, but more the outcome of the classification is brought together, and that can provide good information over time. But we're working on that, and I don't think we've quite cracked it yet, but there's still work to be done. But that would be one of the kind of the technical issues that we're working to resolve on how to bring these disparate data sets together.
There was also a question about sort of citizen engagement and keeping citizens involved, and how do you kind of incentivize them to contribute? So I wondered if maybe ABK and Rochi might have any suggestions on that front.
Yeah, let me address that one. Thank you very much. So, of course, to keep the citizen scientists motivated, we as well do continuous engagement with them. So what interests them most is we try to give them T-shirts in their community that it says that they have been participating into the country's data collection. As well, we do provide them certificates, and this is very important for them, because once we get there, they see what they have been doing, then we issue them certificates, then they will be willing to join the program, and they will be willing to continue the program as well. So we are now looking forward to developing ID cards for them that will identify them that in this community, these are the volunteers that are collecting data for this particular basin. So they are being motivated by that. So sometimes when we have meetings, we discuss to them, we give them transport. That's just something we do to them. Yeah.
Great. Rochi, did you have anything to add?
Yes.
Yes. Did you have anything to add about how you incentivize the citizen scientists?
Yes, I think we have been already addressed the issues for Mara River Basin, specifically for the issue of providing them, the citizen scientists, the motivation. First of all, the first times for the 7 hours, we have provided them the raincoat, and for the second time, also we added them the motivations, the incentives. We provided them incentives so that it will encourage them to continue in monthly readings. But there are some gaps. The first gap is the coverage. When we talk the Lake Victoria Basin, the Lake Victoria Basin, we have almost about 4 regions, and they have a river which discharges the water to Lake Victoria. One of the river we have already covered. This is Mara River Basin, which have been started from the upstream to the downstream. But also we have other 3 rivers remain, which is the Simiyu River, also discharges water to Lake Victoria. And also we have Mirongo, which is cutting across to the Mwanza.
Thank you,
And
Rochi.
also we have a Kagera River, which is at the Kagera region. So all these rivers make it together plus Lake Victoria. That's why we call the Lake Victoria Basin water bodies. So to cover the Sustainable Development Goal 6.3 in large scope.
Thank you very
And the
much,
second
Rochi.
one is about
really helpful to share more about, but I'm just really conscious of time. We just have a couple more minutes. So I wondered if maybe there were some concluding remarks from, was it Nina?
Yes. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, everyone. I know there's been quite a few questions on the chat. I'm really excited to see all the interest and participation in this. And I know 1 hour is, I think, not enough to go through all of these, but I do believe that we'll try our best to get these answered. But for now, we do have to close the webinar. We're very mindful that of people's time. But yeah, I would like to say again, thank you very much, firstly, for your time and attention. Thank you to the presenters that we've heard from today and everyone who helped make this webinar happen. But also thank you for all the hands-on involvement in kicking off and setting up these citizen science projects, for your dedication and the many inputs that have allowed us to prepare the policy brief and the technical brief that were presented today. And we do hope, we're really encouraged by the interest and all the questions in the webinar. We hope that these will be valuable tools for, again, all colleagues working on the topic, working on water quality monitoring, working in NGOs, overall to plug the significant data gap that we have in water quality that we're facing, while at the same time kind of helping empower and engage local communities through citizen science. I'd love to thank also all the participants here for your many questions and enthusiastic participation. So you do have the QR codes and the links. I hope you've managed to get them. I know they've been shared in the chat. We can maybe share them again. There will be a recording of this webinar, so we'll share that, but it will be, again, please do share these tools widely, and they will be shared in a follow-up email as well. We'll share them also in the WWQA monthly newsletter. And again, if there's anything that we can do to support you or your countries or organizations in the journey to adopting citizen science, if you have more questions, at whatever level it is, please do get in touch. We've shared the contact address of the WWQA, or I believe we do have it on a slide. Maybe we can share that if that's not on the screen, or we can drop it in the chat. Please do get in touch, and we'd love to support you on this journey, but we'd also love to hear your reflections and how the policy and technical briefs have helped you on this journey. So again, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you and from continuing this discussion and conversation. Thank you to the presenters and all participants, and wish you a great day.